In the days leading up to Obsession, I kept seeing reviews pop up across my feed, each one better than the last.
Best movie this year really might just be the horror film I just got back from.
Not only did it make waves on the festival circuit, but it's written, directed, and edited by Curry Barker, the latest in an exciting new line of content creators turned feature directors. So I think it's safe to say that this movie is hyped. But is it actually good? Well, yeah. In fact, it's really good. But what makes it special isn't the fact that it's good, it's what makes it good. The movie follows Bear, a hopeless romantic who uses the mysterious one-wish willow to win the love of his friend and work crush, Nikki. He finds himself getting exactly what he asked for, but soon discovers that some desires come at a dark, sinister price. Be careful who you wish for. And honestly, that setup sounds like the kind of horror premise we've heard 100 times before. A supernatural wish gone wrong isn't exactly reinventing the wheel, but the execution is where Obsession stands out. You see, what makes this movie work so well is the straight up suffocating atmosphere created throughout this film. The entire movie filled me with this deep sense of dread that honestly reminded me of the first time I watched Hereditary. Not because the films are all that similar, but because both films understand how to make the audience feel trapped inside this intense drama as the horror slowly reveals itself. So it made sense when Barker listed Ari Aster as one of his filmmaking inspirations. Barker's commitment to story-first horror really helped the movie stay focused. Even during its craziest moments, Obsession never feels like it's chasing cheap reactions just for the sake of it. Every unsettling movement or line, of which there are many of, felt tied directly to the reality of the scene, and as a result, the horror hits so much harder. And a lot of that is thanks to the writing. The dialogue feels incredibly natural, and for once, young people sound like young people. The humor is born out of conversations instead of being added in to check a box. The drama is messy and real, and what makes it even better is that it's very well balanced. In my opinion, most horror films struggle most with tone. Even the successful ones like last year's Weapons had its issues with it, but thanks to Barker's background in comedy, this movie's able to effortlessly sprinkle in these moments that intentionally take the pressure off without fully letting us lower our guard. But it would be a crime to go any further without talking about the piece that holds this movie together. Freaky Nikki, played by Inde Navarrete. Her performance is absolutely a breakout role in every sense of the word. Watching her take this premise that could easily look goofy or campy if mishandled, and instead elevate it into this level of raw, visceral terror is an act of pure talent. She's spoken in interviews about how she was encouraged to try lots of variations in her performance, an accent here, a movement there, and I gotta say, it paid off. She's totally unpredictable and absolutely terrifying. Once Bear makes his wish, her behavior switches so concerningly hard that my sense of fight or flight kicked in, like finding out someone had hidden a bomb in the room. And I liked how this movie had a pretty cool twist on the possession trope, but I'm not sure how much of it lands without Inde delivering the performance that she does. In the brief moments where she would break free from the wish, the absolute terror she conveys would be enough to shake anyone up, but then she'd immediately go into Freaky Nikki mode, and my feelings of fear and concern would get turned into dread. Even the scenes where she doesn't appear in, her presence lingers. And while she does deserve a ton of praise, we do have to give credit to Michael Johnston, who plays Bear, the protagonist? Antagonist? Who can really say? Because this movie loves to play in the gray area when it comes to the actions and desires of these characters. For example, Bear is shown to be this shy, caring, thoughtful guy, someone who has real feelings for Nikki but lacks the confidence to do anything with them. And Michael plays him with a layer of sadness that makes you naturally just want to root for him. But then he makes this wish, and regardless of what he thought would or would not happen, the idea of actively overriding someone's feelings on a whim does say a bit about who he is. I mean, it's kind of like a universal rule. Even Robin Williams was like, yeah, don't do that. And I really loved how the movie explores that. Nobody in this movie is perfect, and that keeps you on your toes. And before we get into spoilers, I have to shout out the craft. The camera angles and shadows are constantly working together to build discomfort without a single word being said, finding fun ways to trick our eyes and taking advantage of our expectations. For example, there was one scene where we knew there was something in the shadows, but the way the scene was lit made it seem like it could come from literally anywhere. So my eyes were darting around the screen in a panic, looking for a threat that didn't exist. And it's just impressive how much atmosphere they were able to squeeze out of such a small budget. Listen, I know I've spent the last 5 minutes talking about this movie like it's the second coming of Midsummer, so let me set some expectations. This movie isn't perfect. I think there's parts that ask me to suspend my disbelief a little bit too much. Characters doing things that avoid logic more than I could ignore, and as a result, the second act felt a bit repetitive. So I think what really has everyone so excited and vocal about this movie is that for a debut feature film, or at least, of his first wide release. There's so much here that works, and you can tell that it's not by accident. Curry Barker is 26, and Martin Scorsese is 206. So I think people are just excited about the potential this kid has and what it could mean for the future of Hollywood. All right, seriously, let's get into spoilers. This is your warning. If you have not seen the movie, subscribe, come back after. I'll be here waiting for you. So we need to talk about the moment where everything changed. And it's not the scene where Bear made the wish. It's when he called the One Wish Willow hotline. You see, up until that point, the movie tricks you into viewing him as this awkward guy who made a horrible mistake and got in way over his head. But when he finally makes an attempt to fix what he's done, his first instinct is to modify his wish, make her more normal while still controlling her. And in that moment, we realize Bear isn't really the victim here. Nikki is. And the person on the other line offers to put her on the phone, and we just hear these awful screams from what we assume is the real Nikki, who is apparently trapped in some like One Wish Willow purgatory. And to me, that's the scariest part of the whole movie. The fact that Nikki is trapped inside of her own body and is actively suffering while Bear is living out this like nightmare fantasy makes the whole thing so much darker. But it also creates a new problem. Because the movie spends so much time centering Bear's fear and regret, Nikki's suffering almost gets pushed to the background. Her pain exists in moments made to scare Bear. Granted, they are some of the scariest scenes in the movie, like when she's smashing a bottle into her face or when she's laying in bed at night asking Bear to, take her out. But because the movie is so locked into Bear's perspective, Nikki never really gets a moment to fully reclaim herself. And I can recognize that as a viewer, sometimes we just want more of the stuff that we like, but I genuinely think that the movie would have benefited from it. I think that's why the ending left me feeling a little conflicted, because on paper, the ending is dark and honestly pretty effective. Bear realizes that he's completely destroyed both their lives and the lives of their friends and decides that the only way to end the curse is to kill himself. But since we know that Bear is, a selfish coward, he tries to back out, only for Nikki's wish to stop him from throwing the pills up. And I did feel a sense of poetic justice when Bear is forced into that, Willow purgatory, but then he dies after a couple minutes, releasing Nikki from his wish and leaving her to deal with the aftermath. It's a bit of a lose-lose situation, for everyone involved. Like, I feel like the intention was for us to feel bad, you know what I mean? But emotionally, part of me still wanted Nikki to have more agency in the resolution. Not necessarily like a happy ending or anything, but just a chance for her to really fight back. But the fact that this story and these characters have me reflecting emotionally rather than critically kind of tells me everything I need to know. But I want to hear from you guys. Leave a comment down below if you've seen the movie, what you thought about it. Subscribe for more reviews. Anyway, see you guys next time. Peace.